Hey everybody, nice to see you. So the topic of today's video is It Hurts So Good. This video is closely related to a video I made about a year ago when I left on this big journey called that was all about restoration of virginity. And so you can find that one, and or if you got the newsletter, I'll put it in the body of the newsletter. But basically, I've learned something upon the cessation of my restoration of virginity. And it's what I call it is the clean bleed. And so I wanted to talk to you about it because it was a real revelation for me. Only made possible by the fact that I consciously restored virginity, meaning, watch the video if you want to know more, but meaning that I consciously sealed everything up and basically said, I'm not going to have any sexual relations. I'm not going to merge my field with anyone else. I'm going to come in here and allow something to happen. Allow my own energy to refine itself and purify itself and come home. And I said when I made that video, I was like, well, I don't know. Maybe I'll do it for a year. And then I heard myself saying there, I don't like to put timing on these kinds of things. But in that video, I was saying it's an important thing to do a lot, because coming back to ourselves, knowing woman, knowing us as ourselves, one unto ourselves. Woman is one unto herself. Yet we are such relational beings. And when we are in particularly sexual intimacy with another, we create really powerful unified fields. And we're doing all sorts of things in those unified fields. And what we often need to do, right, is to figure out how it is that we enjoy the beauty of that and the magic of that, and address any ways in which we're contorting inside of that, right? So restoration of virginity is for me, one of the deeper mysteries and important deep feminine sensibilities and skillful means for being a woman, right? And being able to have this experience, right, where we're tossed into sexual intimacy, relationship, all these things, and kind of learn as we go in a lot of ways. Maybe we get some good mentorship, but basically we need to know how we repair and how we return to ourselves when we get lost. Because the idea that we're never going to get lost and that we're never going to get hurt and we're never going to contort around the wrong kind of person or the wrong kind of situation and lose ourselves again, that's unfair. This is how we learn. So restoration of virginity, and that process for me brought me to a really I learned something important as I came out of that time of restoration of virginity. So what it was, obviously, maybe to you, was that I opened to intimacy with a man. And we're not going to get into it, but it was good in terms of being, it wasn't a bad thing. In fact, we're really dear friends now. But I had this experience. I'm going to try to share it with you. And what it was that because I was coming out of a state in which I kind of had myself in a certain way, and I liked having myself, my barometer for my kind of my inner compass for how I was willing to move into this intimacy, how, why, or how deeply, had shifted actually significantly. And there are two things I learned that I needed. One is to be oriented, and the other is that I needed the clean bleed. So what came first was a need to be oriented. I realized that I can't make good decisions about an intimacy, where to go, how to hold it, what depth there is, whether or not to allow it, etc., unless I'm oriented by the other person, right? Maybe this is obvious to you, and it is kind of obvious, but I actually literally asked the question. I said, I need you to orient me here. I can't make good decisions unless you describe to me the terrain that we are in. For me, that was significant. Of course, I was oriented to my own feelings. I was oriented to my own truth and all the other things. But in order to have a true orientation to the truth of what was happening, I actually needed to be oriented by this person. And what I realized was that his willingness to orient me was a prerequisite of having any intimacy with me at all, right? I didn't know that before. So learning, sharing, maybe you already knew this. It was particularly clear because I had been in such a different state. Anyway, point is, I learned about orientation, and now I have several sisters I've talked to, and what it's come down to is this thing of like, well, did you ask this person to orient you? You can do that. You can say, hey, I'm not clear. Can you please orient me to where we are? And that asks something, for sure. That asks that this person in front of you has some ability to know themselves. You're going to find out a lot of things when you ask a question like that. Do they know where they are? Are they able to articulate it? Are they able to speak honestly about it? Right? It's a little different from saying, from like sitting down at the dating table and saying like, hey, well, I want this, and okay, well, I want this. Okay, great. I see where we are. I see where we could kind of fit, whatever. That's the dating game. This is different. This is, we're entering a terrain that we're going to walk, and neither one of us really is going to know what's going to be there. So I need you to give me your outline. I need you to tell me what you're seeing as the terrain we're in right now, so that my next steps can be good ones, so that I can make good decisions. So that was one of the things I learned. And then the second thing I learned was about the clean bleed, because in that conversation, and we hadn't shared a ton of intimacy. I mean, I'm like, how do I? Point is, in that conversation, there was something that he said to me that I think you can appreciate how it felt to hear it. And he said, well, I'm not in love with you. Right? And listen, okay? I come from a history, I come from patterns of fantasizing, right? And kind of having things go awry often, because I do, and I am enabled to fantasize about this person in front of me, who they are, our soul connection, all of the things, Meanwhile, then I end up way down the road, and so do they, and it's not correct, because it was never true. Right? So this particular being, who's a very different kind of being than I've ever known, was able to just say, well, I'm not in love with you, and say it straight, and it hurt. Okay? I'm not going to lie. There was a certain hurt to that, because what woman wants to hear that in that situation? However, it had a quality to it, and the quality was a clean bleed. It was just like it was the severance, it was the death, it was the mercy killing of fantasy. It was the mercy killing of all the unconscious fantasies that were starting to run in the back of my head, just because we'd been intimate. Because that's what happens when, as a woman, you start to bond, and you start to, there's a lot of things that get put into motion. And if we're not with someone who can be honest and orient us and continue to kind of contain us, right? This is why, when everything starts to get moving, what often is needed is a little bit of containment. Like, okay, show me where my limitations are. Show me where all this that's moving in me, maybe it's passion, maybe it's pleasure, maybe it's whatever it is, adoration. It's all the things that start to move when a woman opens, when her heart opens, and her body opens, and her pleasure opens. All these things start to open. For me, what I need limitations put on that. And I understood that there's a lot of an understanding about how much is not just, the burden is not actually on me to do it all, right? I'm not supposed to figure that out all on my own. Of course I'm supposed to know myself. However, in a relational terrain, I need to be oriented. So the clean bleed. And that, it's like there were two things that I felt. First of all, it had such a different quality than the pain that I've had in relationships that are dysfunctional. You know, that kind of angsty, grasping, wanting it to be different than it is, confused, like pushing, pulling, what's true, wait, you know, like all the things. It was not like that. It was a very different pain. And it felt good. Like I felt like, especially because I had taken the time to restore virginity. I had taken the time to come fully back into myself and to remember that and to want that when it came, I wanted the clean bleed. I was grateful, truly grateful. It helped me so much because even though, you know, all of that, you know, like I said, it was the mercy killing of fantasy. Even although all of that was starting to move again, I knew from the time I had spent kind of in my own containment that I didn't want that anymore, deeply. I don't want that anymore. So to be in front of someone who's willing to give me the clean bleed is what I want. Maybe secondarily to like the love of my life, right? But the clean bleed was welcome. And what it also did was it killed fantasy in order to allow reality to actually unfurl. And there is a beautiful intimacy between us. And there is a deep trust and honesty and such a true friendship, right? And a relationship that just is what it is, but has been freed to be what it is because there's been that level of honesty. There's been a clean bleed. It's not being contorted by my fantasy, thanks to his willingness to orient me to what was actually true. And there was something, you know, well, anyway, maybe I'll stop there. All I wanted to say is that it's okay to, I guess what I wanted to do was to just say that, first of all, I encourage you to restore virginity, particularly when you're confused. Watch the video. It's really potent, and all I hear from women is how potent it is for them. You're doing it all the time, often. When we do it a lot without conscious awareness of it. Bring conscious awareness to it. Understand that it is the skillful means of a woman incarnate, you know, and this is what is going to help you. This is what will make it okay for you to go ahead and be a heroine and go on this love journey in life, right? So that, lost my train of thought, but anyway, point is, please consider, I really hope that you consider either taking some time for that or acknowledging that you are taking time for that, and then being really aware of that moment when life calls you out of that state or you choose to move out of that state. Because in that threshold time where you are reopening and you are moving, you are different if you allow yourself to be. But we have to go slow there, right? And one of the things to do is to keep making sure that if you're going to open to another relational field, that who you're with is capable of orienting you to what the relational field is. And that's not some bullshit about, oh, I love you and I want this and I want that. And, you know, it's not that. That's lovely. But what it really is like, I'm right here. This is what I'm capable of. This is what I'm willing to do. And I'm willing to say hard things to you that you don't want to hear, that I can tell you don't want to hear. I know you don't want to hear that I'm not in love with you, for instance. That may not be what comes out of their mouth. It could be the opposite, right? But, and then for us to just open the heart and want the clean, like let it free. you. It freed me from something deeply. And I'm still a little bit like not sure, it's like that was a way that I had for a long, long time. And there was something about that interaction that really just kind of showed me in my own being the death and the end of that. So that's my offering for you today. It hurts so good. Welcome the clean bleed. Wherever you are in your relations, if we are welcoming the clean bleed, that means we are disallowing all the manipulation and all the lies. We're disallowing that. That is not the clean bleed. You can tell because all that just makes you feel, it'll make you feel bound. You'll feel like entangled. The clean bleed is clean. That's the point of it. It's clean, and it just kind of lets you know where you are so that you're back into yourself and you can make some good decisions, right? The opposite of the clean bleed, all that other relationship dysfunction in all of its many forms, the energetic quality of it is that it will feel entangling, confusing, right? The clean bleed doesn't feel that way, and it doesn't feel that way to be oriented either. And remember what we're looking for, particularly after we've restored virginity and remembered that we are one unto ourselves. We are looking for, most importantly, what we need in order to make good decisions for and with ourselves in relationship to the sexual potency that we steward, the emotional vulnerability that we contain, right? And the sacred nature that lives inside of us. So, love y'all. That's my offering for today. Her mystery school opens soon we'll travel again together starting next September. We open for registration June 6th. It's all starting to move again. I'm very happy to be with you. If you have questions specifically for me, send them to support@hermysteryschool.com, because real soon I'm going to start just answering questions that get sent in to me to have a little bit more fun. All right, love y'all. Bye.